Hi, Creative Soul. Welcome to the Alchemy of Writing webinar. I'm happy that you're here and that you have the desire to learn more about how to conjure and nurture your enduring writing practice. I can't wait to share with you some of the insights I've gained over the years working with students and clients about what it takes to create and maintain a practice that will serve you in all your writing endeavors. I won't go into a long, drawn-out story about my past the way you've probably seen in a lot of webinars, but I do want to give you a brief intro to me for those who don't know me. My name is Johnny Mazzocco. I call myself a word witch for a few reasons. I see fiction writing as a form of magic, and I've been helping people work magic on the page for well over 20 years as a college writing professor and then with private clients. I'm also a practicing witch, and I consider my writing practice an important part of my spiritual practice. I believe I'm on this earth to heal the world through stories, whether it's the ones I write and tell or the ones I help others write and tell. I'm excited that you're here, and I'm happy to have you in my community of like-minded creatives who embrace the power of story to heal. Let's talk about what you can expect in this webinar. First, I'll be sharing the 4 keystones of an enduring writing practice. When you registered for the webinar, you had the option of downloading 4 fillable worksheets or guides. Keep in mind that to use the fillable fields on them all, you'll need to download them onto your computer. They and the webinar today are a distillation of my full Alchemy of Writing course. Throughout this webinar, I'll share with you more details about what you'll find in the course, and a bit later on in the webinar, I'll tell you how you can get it absolutely free. I created this webinar not just to share with you the keystones and tell you about the course, but to also share with you why they're so important to maintaining a thriving writing practice and how to put them into practice. After working with students and private clients for over 2 decades, I have found that one of the major reasons people struggle with their writing is because they don't have a solid foundation for a thriving practice. There's a lot more to writing than learning craft. That's really only a small part of living a writing life. I think in many ways, a person's habits, the way they think about writing and themselves as a writer, as well as the space they work in and how they manage time, have way more influence on their success and productivity. Here's a quick overview of the 4 important keystones for any enduring writing practice. First, we have planning. And my guess is that this is a different kind of planning than you might be thinking of. More on that soon. Next, we have scheduling. Not super sexy or fun, but it's essential, and there is an art to it. After that, we have perspective, what some people call mindset these days. And lastly, we have commitment. So let's talk about the first keystone, which is planning. And this is about being forward-thinking and proactive. I love this quote from Lao Tzu. Do the difficult things while they are easy, and do the great things while they are small. A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. Whether it's a novel or a short story or anything else in life that feels big to you, the single first step is the one that gets things moving forward. And when that comes, after that, as Margaret Atwood says, is a word after a word after a word. Establishing a writing practice begins with creating space, both temporal and spatial. So let's start with temporal space. And by that, I mean the kind of time that you have in your life, or better yet, the way you use time. I think of time the way I think of money. We can spend it, save it, waste it, or use it wisely. A marriage counselor once said to me that the best way to prevent divorce is to plan for it. And I know that doesn't sound very romantic, but the point he was making is that if we look away from something that we don't want to see happen, or if we pretend that we're immune to it, we can't take preventative measures to keep it from happening. And this is why when I work with people, we always, from the very beginning, look at obstacles that could get in the way, because the more you can anticipate them and plan for them, the better prepared you'll be to handle them when they do surface, because they will. For the webinar, we're going to look at daily obstacles, situations that might show up in your day-to-day life. Here are a few that come to mind. Unexpected family responsibilities. This is a huge one for people with families. If you have a partner or a spouse and you have kids, or if you're a single parent, if you're someone who is caring for an ill parent. To be honest, one of the biggest obstacles to a writing practice can be other people, even people that you love. And in many cases, it isn't their fault. For example, in the instance of kids, They have needs that have to be met, and that's just the way it is. My kids are all grown-ups now, but years ago when they were younger, it was an ongoing struggle to figure out how to juggle my family life and my writing life. I always felt that if I was focusing on one, I was neglecting the other. And so it was this sort of ping-pong existence for me. I remember getting everyone off to school, racing back home and getting settled so I could write. Then the school would call because someone was sick, so I'd have to set my writing aside, go pick them up, and tend to them after we got back home. And their needs took precedence over writing some days. And we can't plan for these kinds of things, but I think if I had known about these 4 keystones back then, it probably would have helped me on those days when I felt that my writing was taking a back seat to everything else. Another obstacle might be shifting work schedules. If you work in hospitality or if you're in healthcare, especially if you work at a hospital, I know a lot of people who are in marketing and PR with schedules that are all over the place. And I know there are plenty of others as well. If you have such a schedule, maybe you're lucky enough to have a job that lets you know well enough in advance what your schedule will be so you can plan ahead. If you don't have that benefit, it makes it more difficult. But there are still ways. There are ways to figure this out so that you can write. Here's another, sabotage from others. And this one's not very fun, but it happens. And it can happen in a number of ways. It can come from other writers. Sometimes certain writing communities can be elitist. There can be a lot of competition, which I don't understand, but it exists. And there can be some sabotage going on in those groups. There can also be sabotage from people who love us the most. So you might find that some are threatened by the topics you're writing about, some fear your success, some are jealous, some resent the time that writing takes away from them, or maybe you're sabotaging yourself. With ingrained habits, we all have these. We wake up in the morning and we kick into automation. And sometimes we have our morning routines, and again, if you have other people in your life, you're also responsible for their routines, getting them where they need to go. Then you head off to work if you work outside the home, or it's back home to take care of household chores. Then before you know it, it's time to pick up kids if you have them, come home and make dinner and deal with everybody and everything, and then it's bedtime. So what I like to do when I work with people is to ask them to step back and start to think about what these habits look like for them, because they are so ingrained sometimes that they really don't see them. Habits can be like the air that we breathe. We just don't think about it. And ingrained habits can become so second nature that we don't question them. So I hope that after you watch this webinar, you'll take some time to complete the planning worksheet and really start to think about day-to-day obstacles that are preventing you from writing or that could prevent you from writing. I think you'll find that when you start to get more conscious about what those existing or potential obstacles are and how often they come up or could come up, you'll begin to see where you can create little shifts. And when you do that, those ingrained habits that don't serve you, that interfere with your ability to write, start to dissipate and eventually disappear. And that will allow you to get closer to establishing a writing habit, whether it's daily or weekly, however often you can manage. Because I don't think you have to write every day to call yourself a writer or to make significant progress. If you can, of course, that's ideal, but I don't think it's necessary. Another obstacle is social media and TV, and this could be an ingrained habit. We're all so bombarded with information and distractions, and we actually need our laptops, our computers, our phones to function these days. It's so easy, for me anyway, and I'll speak for myself, to open my laptop to accomplish one thing and then realize, oh, 30 minutes have gone by, and I've been doing other things and didn't accomplish the thing I set out to do. It's something I'm always working on, being mindful of, and striving to improve. So check in with yourself and get really honest about how much time you spend on social media and watching movies and TV shows. And I'm not talking about the time spent on social media if that's part of your job. That's different. This is about scrolling mindlessly and binge watching. So much time spent doing this for some people and a huge obstacle to creativity of any kind. Another big obstacle for some people is relationship drama. Not only does it take up precious time, it can really derail a creative mind and heart. If you're lucky enough to have relationships where there is no day-to-day drama, good for you. That is a really good thing. But even in the best relationships, things happen. Things have to be discussed and resolved. For a lot of people, relationship drama is very discombobulating and can really disrupt a sensitive nervous system and pull a person off their matrix, which gets in the way of writing and a person's ability to focus, to be able to think clearly and get the words on the page. And this includes drama with kids. Kids are dramatic, and so there's always stuff to deal with, and especially if you have more than one. It can feel like juggling 100 balls at once and then trying to find time for this very creative, quiet thing that you're compelled to do, and that is to write. So what daily obstacles do you have in your life? If you like, pause the webinar for a moment and make a rough list of obstacles that you currently face, and maybe even go one step further and add a few that you might face in the future. So, how do you deal with these obstacles when they show up? You make backup plans, and I'll explain what I mean by that, and I'll give you an example. Let's imagine that I've told myself I'm going to wrap up my week by coming home from work or closing my laptop and stepping away from it if I work at home. And I'm going to make some good food and then spend some time, maybe 2 hours writing. And that's my plan. And maybe I've even been doing this for a while. Maybe it's become part of my regular routine. Then my good friend Susan gets in touch with me and says, "Hey, I got a big promotion. A bunch of us are going out to celebrate. Come out with us." In that moment, I have a couple of choices. I can ditch my writing and go out and celebrate with my friend, but I know myself well. I'm going to feel shitty because I've let myself down, because I'm not following through with the promise I made to myself. I could tell my friend, "No, I can't come because I write every Friday, sorry," but I'm probably not going to feel great about that either. So how do I deal with this? I resort to my backup plan. And the thing is, I need to have this plan in place before this thing arises, right? I need to know what I'm going to do if and when something like this shows up. So what I might do is say, I will write Saturday night this week instead. I don't get to skip my Friday evening writing session. That's not an option. Now, I'm not going to switch my whole writing schedule forever, but just for this week, I will write on Saturday night instead, because if I go out Friday night with my friend, I might be out late, and then I would need to sleep in, and I wouldn't be able to write Saturday morning. So this has given me a good cushion of time to go out, have some fun, sleep in if I need to, maybe get some things done on Saturday, and then spend some time Saturday evening or Saturday night writing. So what happens if I already had planned Saturday night as well? Well, then I take my Friday night writing that's been set to the side because I'm going out to celebrate with my friend, and I move it to Sunday. And this may seem pretty rudimentary, but the point is that I need to be willing to make some concessions, and I need to have some things in place beforehand. That's the key. So that when situations like this come up, I already know what to do, and I can just do it, and I don't have to feel bad about missing my writing or missing my friend's celebration. I won't be going back on my promise I made to myself. And this is how we keep things moving forward. We anticipate the obstacles beforehand. We write down how we will deal with them if and when they show up. Then when they happen, all we have to do is check our resource and do what we've said we would do. How do you currently handle disruptions to your writing plans? Do you skip writing altogether? Do you feel bad about it or get frustrated by it? Does it make you feel hopeless? Or do you have backup plans in place? It's easy to get swallowed up in our day-to-day lives, but when we become more aware about what and who is getting in our way, we can get more intentional about creating the space for our writing practice and putting backup plans in place. And the reward, we start to see more success in terms of showing up and doing the writing. In Module 1 of the full Alchemy of Writing course, we'll delve deeper into other types of obstacles you'll encounter while maintaining a writing practice and how to address and transform them. We'll also explore your writing desires and visions and complete a personalized, comprehensive resource of support systems that ensures you always have what you need to stay focused and looking forward. For this keystone, you received access to the Anticipating Obstacles worksheet. You can either pause the webinar now and complete it, or you can continue to watch and complete them all after you've finished the webinar. All right, next we have scheduling. This keystone is about treating your writing like it's a job you love and you're the boss. And this is about calendaring. And I know this may seem like a no-brainer and like, why are we even talking about this? But I'm convinced there's an art to scheduling and calendaring. As Jack Welch says, there's no such thing as work-life balance. There are work-life choices, and you make them, and they have consequences. What I like about this quote is that it speaks to this reality that there is only so much time in a day, and we create the lives that we live. I've always felt that trying to strike a balance is really not the way to go, because I'm not convinced that's possible. It's more about thinking about the responsibilities that we have created for ourselves and then thinking about the things that we need to keep ourselves healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I think a writing practice does all those things. It does for me anyway, and for a lot of people I know. So if we want to write, it's about making choices. And when we fall into this mode of feeling like we've become a victim in our own lives, knowing that there are ways to change that and not necessarily striving for balance, but striving to create something that feels more harmonious within us, we can feel more empowered. And I know this because I've had jobs in the past that have been absolutely soul-sucking and that took so much time from my life and took so much energy from my soul and my system, just really demanded too much of me. But even during those times, I found that if I could find even a couple of hours a week that I could write, it all somehow felt manageable. And there's this thing I used to say. Years ago, I was a runner, and I always said that if I could run in the morning, I knew I could do the day. And I also said that if I could write on a regular basis, even if it was just once a week, I knew I could do life. I truly felt that way, and I still do. Because when we can learn to trust the creative process and see the magic of it play out over and over again, we can then trust the process of life. Writing doesn't simply just happen, and waiting for inspiration is a mistake. Set appointments on your calendar and treat them like all the other important appointments and responsibilities in your life. If you had an appointment with your doctor or hairdresser or mechanic, you would shape your day around it. You wouldn't just not show up. And the same should be true of your writing practice. When I talk about scheduling, I'm talking about goals. And I think about two types. I think of big picture goals and I think of step-by-step goals. So the step-by-step goals sit under the umbrella of or within the container of the big picture goals. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's say a big picture goal that I want to schedule is to change my habits so I can establish my writing practice. Well, this just doesn't happen overnight, right? And it's a bit vague. So we need to nest under that a step-by-step process to realize this change in our habits, the bigger goal. And rather than get into those in this webinar because there just isn't enough time for that, let's talk a little more about this idea of big picture scheduling and what that looks like. I might say that by 3 months from now, I want to have solidified my writing practice so that it has become second nature to me. I will put that on my calendar for 3 months from today. I might say something like writing practice foundation complete. And even with the best intentions, what can happen if I simply put that on my calendar and it's sitting there in the future and my days are so full every day that by the time that 3-month mark shows up, I've done nothing to make it happen. What I need to do is create steps between now and that 3-month mark about how and what I'm going to change so that I can realize that goal. Then I would put each one of those goals or tasks on my calendar also and create a path of sorts, a string of breadcrumbs that will get me to the big picture goal. So why do I want to assign my end goal a date and put it on the calendar? I'm a big fan of celebrating progress and successes. After I've put the goals and steps in place that will get me to this fully realized regular writing practice, this big picture goal, when I get to that date 3 months from now, and I see that I've actually done what I set out to do, it's such a great feeling. And there's even science behind this, that when we accomplish goals and tasks and are able to cross them off a list, our brains get bathed in dopamine, and it's that feel-good hormone. And when we get that satisfying sensation, we're compelled to keep moving forward. What I do, and what I would love for you to do, is celebrate somehow when you reach that big picture goal and all the seemingly small ones along the way. It doesn't have to be something big or elaborate, just enough to tell your beautiful brain, good job, we did it. I always make a point to do something to celebrate my accomplishments, whether it's to go buy a new piece of clothing, buy a mocha because I love my mochas, or a new thumb drive because I'm sort of a geek about digital storage because I'm such a pack rat with digital files, or a new book or tarot deck or something bigger, like a weekend getaway to go write when I've reached those bigger accomplishments. And I always like to send a signal to my brain that I did what I said I was going to do. Other big picture goals might be educate myself about writing, but by what time and in what way? What exactly do I want to know about, and how will I make that happen? How will I break this down into manageable steps and tasks? Maybe I want to create a goal to finish the first draft of my novel, let's say by the end of the year. That will be a goal worth a big celebration. But how do I get to it? What steps do I need to take? What can I do to distill this down into manageable pieces? And what will I put on a list of goals and tasks that will add up to a completed first draft? And how and when will I schedule them out on my calendar? I know some people may be thinking, wait, why are we talking about this? Just putting things on a calendar. And I get that this may seem very rudimentary to some people, but I know from working with so many people that it takes a lot more than just deciding. I'm not going to put a new task on my calendar and assume it will happen because, like I said, our ingrained wiring or ingrained habits become so entrenched within us that we have to make a concerted effort to think objectively about them, then take steps to undo that wiring and create new wiring to achieve the new things that we want. Otherwise, they'll just remain dreams. So how do you ensure your focus to get to the finish line or to reach your goal? You understand how you spend your time. All right, so maybe in reading this or hearing me say this, you might think, I know how I spend my time. I do it every day. True, but as I said earlier, it's so easy for us to get in this mode of being on autopilot and having our go-to habits, some of which could be eating up precious time that we could be using for writing. The minutes fly by on any given day because we're so caught up in getting through and managing our responsibilities. But when we slow down enough to really examine our day-to-day lives and how we spend our time, we can surprise ourselves. The reward? We develop a stronger sense of agency and mastery over our lives, which leads to feeling more empowered and more confident, and which can't help but strengthen our writing practices. In Module 2 of the full Alchemy of Writing course, we'll consider the differences between big picture and step-by-step scheduling and how and when to use them to enhance success in your writing practice. We'll look at how you spend your days down to 15-minute increments, and you'll learn how to find time you didn't know you had and how to bank it the way you bank money. We'll also take an intentional look at the advantages and disadvantages of both analog and digital scheduling. And like I said, there is an art to this. And we'll figure out which is best for you and your brain wiring, and how to best utilize them separately or in tandem. The handout that you received for this keystone is the time tracking worksheet. Now on to keystone 3, which is perspective or mindset. And this is about thinking like a writer, because we do view the world differently. Astrid Alauda says you must weed your mind as you would weed your garden. A big part of writing is perspective or mindset. In the case of writing, it's about a lot more than simply thinking positively. It's about more than adopting an I can do this mentality. And it's not really mind over matter. Like I said, writers view the world differently than non-writers. The truth is, your thoughts affect your productivity. There's just no way around it. So we can think about this in terms of a fixed or growth perspective. Here are a few of the fixed perspectives that I've seen and heard in my students and clients. I don't know how. It feels impossible. I don't have time. I'm waiting for the right time. Someone might steal my idea. And this one I've heard often, this last one. Some people are so afraid to work on their story idea and then workshop it for feedback or critique, or work with a mentor or coach because they think someone is going to steal it. But the truth to this last one is that we all have so many ideas rumbling around inside us, and so many people aren't even writing their own. The chance that they're going to steal yours is really highly unlikely. And even if they tried, it could never be like the one you would write, because you are two entirely different people. So how do you turn this fixed way of thinking around? You turn your fixed statements into questions. For example, I don't know how becomes, what do I need to learn? It feels impossible becomes, how can I distill it to steps? I don't have time becomes, how can I change my habits? Someone might steal my idea becomes, how can I learn to collaborate? Like habits, your thought patterns and language can become so ingrained you might not realize the messages you're sending yourself. But when you take the time to listen and question those thoughts and beliefs, your perspective will shift. And the reward? A more inquisitive approach to living a writing life, which leads to wonder and excitement and vitality. In Module 3 of the Alchemy of Writing course, we'll take a closer look at the ingrained thought patterns that occupy your beautiful brain and what they tell you about your writing and about yourself as a writer. And we'll determine where those voices came from, and we'll do a powerful exercise to banish them from your thoughts once and for all. For this keystone, the worksheet you received is the mindset worksheet. Before we get to the last keystone, I want to share some information about how you can get the entire Alchemy of Writing course at no cost. The regular price for the course is $188, so it's a great deal all on its own. And you're welcome to go that route, or you can join the Alchemy of Writing membership group and get the entire course absolutely free just for being a member. The Alchemy of Writing membership group is a fairly new community, as of this recording, that I created with quiet souls in mind. It's for everyone, of course, but I wanted it to be a welcoming place for introverts, empaths, intuitives, HSPs, and neurodivergents. After years of working with people, I realized that those students who really invested in me and my classes, those who I helped the most, and also the clients I've enjoyed working with the most, and who felt at home working with me, were sensitive in some way. One of my great passions in life is to support people who want to write. I've seen all the struggles that people face, and most, if not all, of those struggles can be managed, even banished altogether. I also know that those of us who have the impulse to write tend to be sensitive souls. The world is harsh, it's noisy, and full of all kinds of stimuli that can cause a writer to struggle maintaining focus, can make them feel alone and isolated with their art, and can even shut down some so that they don't create at all. And I think that's a tragedy. I truly do believe that stories heal, and it's my mission in life to help as many people as possible tell the stories that live inside them, because when they find their way out, they not only heal the writer, they also heal everyone who reads them. I'd love to tell you about some of the features of the membership group. We have weekly silent virtual writing gatherings. You get your choice of Wednesday evening or Saturday morning. They last for an hour and they're completely silent. We simply get on a Zoom call together and write. There's no talking, no teaching, no sharing, just writing. I give a 5-minute heads up near the end, and then I say a quick and quiet goodbye. Another feature of the membership group is the monthly live Q&A. So you can get online with me and anyone else who shows up for 1 hour every month, usually on the last Thursday of the month, unless it lands on a holiday. And you can ask me any question you have about writing in general or about your particular project. I've also just created a new online community on the Kajabi platform, and it took me a while to find the right place for us because I wanted to satisfy certain needs. And I knew that a Facebook group wasn't the answer. It's just too noisy, too busy, too chaotic on there. In the community, you'll find a weekly Magical Monday writing prompt, and we will regularly post more resources for you, like articles about writing and the writing life, as well as information and links to register for writing retreats and conferences. And of course, the full Alchemy of Writing course is on there as well. In the near future, we'll also be adding other complimentary and low-cost or deeply discounted resources to support you in your writing life, like workshops, ebooks, and templates, and anything else that we add in the membership group in the future. You get all of this at the price for $28 a month with a 6-month commitment. I hope you'll join us and become part of this new and growing community of like-minded creatives who embrace the power of story to heal. And whether you would like to buy the course or join the group, I'll provide links at the end of the webinar. All right, now let's look at the last keystone for conjuring and nurturing your enduring writing practice, which is commitment. And this is about your relationship with your writing. Okay, I don't usually quote myself. I think it's kind of corny, but I tell my students and clients this all the time because I sincerely believe it. Honoring your writing practice is an act of self-love. And if you get nothing else from this webinar, I hope that, even if I never hear from you again, and I really hope I do, I hope that you remember this statement right here. Committing to a writing practice is a lot like taking a vow. The way you would take a vow to be true to your relationships with the people in your life. Committing to a writing practice is a commitment to yourself. One of the things we talk about in this module of the full Alchemy of Writing course is that part of making this commitment is to quiet those voices that you got clear about with Keystone 3. Because they'll keep coming up, they'll keep whispering in your ear until you take steps to banish them from your mind and your belief system. I recommend approaching it this way. What do they say to you? Ask yourself this question. Get really quiet and think about this. Write down whatever comes to you. And again, you can pause now and do this exercise, or you can wait until the end. Ask yourself how long they have been with you. And this is shocking to people sometimes when they realize how long a voice has been with them. I'm thinking of so many of the college students I taught. For many years, I taught at a community college, so I had students of all ages. I would have people in their 40s and up who hadn't written since they graduated from high school because of some shitty teacher, something they said, and sometimes even before high school, something that was said to them, some thoughtless, mean comment that just stifled them. So think about how long these voices have been with you. Think about, who do the voices belong to? Oftentimes, we can trace these back to an incident or a person, and sometimes these beliefs we have come from our culture. They're virtually unspoken, and especially for women. We see this because we've been trained from the time we were little girls that what we say doesn't matter. And there are plenty of women walking around who, on the surface, seem all put together and confident, and they have very powerful jobs, but so many of them carry around these doubts and these voices in their minds. And granted, all of us have these. All of us have doubts from time to time, but I'm talking about repetitive comments and voices and statements that play through your brain and keep you from doing the things you want to do, like write. And lastly, why do you believe them? And this might be the most important one. Why would you believe these things that people have told you about yourself? Who knows you better than you? Who knows what you are capable of? You do. And I sincerely believe that if you have the impulse to write, you can, because you would not have that impulse, that desire, if you were not able to do it, if you were not competent enough to do it. Sometimes we hold on to these intrusive thoughts about ourselves, about our writing, about you name it, that get in the way of things that we really want to do in life and keep us from doing them. And the reason we hang on to them is because it kind of keeps us safe. I have a YouTube channel. It's not big. It's growing very, very slowly, but I'm keeping at it. I put it off for years because I just wasn't comfortable with the idea putting myself out there like that and being so open to, internet trolls and mean people, because I'll tell you this, the reason I attract all those sensitive people that I mentioned earlier and have so much success with, is because I'm one of them. I finally realized that all the reasons I was giving myself to not do my YouTube channel were all the same reasons students and clients have given me as reasons for not starting their novel, not having a writing practice, not being able to write. So I decided to just get over myself and do it. And once I started, I love it. I wish I hadn't held myself back for so long, but I think subconsciously I was keeping myself safe. So start to think about why you believe some of the voices in your head, why you carry these beliefs, and think of ways to dissolve them and banish them from your mind once and for all. So, how do you banish them from your mind? You show them who's in charge. When the voices in your head have been with you for a long time, they can run in the background like an app on your phone and really drain you in your belief in yourself. When you acknowledge them, put them in their proper place, and take charge of your own creative life, they disappear. The reward? You're left with the power to decide for yourself what you want your writing life to look like. In Module 4 of the full Alchemy of Writing course, you'll do processes and exercises to help you create your sacred writing space. No matter the size of your home or how many people you share space with, you'll also learn and perform another powerful process, a commitment ceremony that will set the stage for a fulfilling, enriching writing practice that will serve you for life. The handout for this keystone isn't really a worksheet. It's an essay by Virginia Woolf called Professions for Women. It comes from a talk that Woolf gave in 1931. It was then published in a collection of her essays called The Moth and Other Essays after her death. Even though Virginia Woolf spoke these words so long ago, they are still meaningful today. And while she speaks to women specifically in the essay, what she says can be true for us all. If you haven't read Woolf, you might find her challenging to read, but I hope you will read these 6 pages and take her message about the angel in the house to heart, and every writer's need to have a space to write, which was the seed to her later work, A Room of One's Own. I hope you find these 4 keystones helpful, and please stick around for the links that are coming right up. I would love to see you in the Alchemy of Writing membership group so you can have access to the full course and find support for your writing life. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you taking the time to listen and do the worksheets, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Take care for now. Sending you mad writing mojo. Happy writing.